Before Seoul, Obama was on a two-day state visit to Tokyo. The government of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe went all out, a meal of expensive sushi, a state dinner, a meeting with Japan's emperor, and plenty of time for face-to-face talks. Abe wanted a commitment of support for Japan, particularly about a small chain of islands it calls the Senkaku. China claims them too and calls them the Diaoyu. So, U.S. backing for Japan and support for Japan's military buildup were high on Abe's agenda. Social media in Japan was buzzing about Obama's visit. Here's our contributor in Tokyo, Toshi Maeda.
As the first U.S. president to visit Japan as state guest since Bill Clinton, President Obama received a warm and personal welcome from Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who invited Obama to a dinner at a tiny sushi bar in Tokyo's posh Ginza district upon his arrival. Their private dinner at the sushi counter over sake was meant to show the closeness of their relationship at a time of rising security concerns in East Asia.
Thank you. That's some good sushi right there.
But not everybody thought sushi diplomacy was a perfect idea. Photographer Roland Kirishima, who unsuccessfully ran for Japan's upper house last year, tweeted President Obama may have been happier to go to one of Japan's gourmet hamburger restaurants instead of a sushi bar in Ginza. Everybody knows Obama likes hamburgers, and this would have provided a great opportunity to let him know about Japan's high-quality beef and turn Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations in Japan's favor. In a further show of friendship, Obama and Abe openly called each other by their first name. Many in the SNS community, however, said they found it awkward to see Abe repeatedly refer to the U.S. president as Barack during their joint news conference. Tokyo University professor Robert Geller tweeted, "Calling each other Barack and Shinzo sounds natural in English, but in Japanese, calling him Barack sounds kind of rude. Languages can be very difficult."
And let me reiterate that our treaty commitment to Japan's security is absolute.
Although their regional free trade talks did not yield much result, for Japan, the #1 outcome was Obama's assurance that America will defend Japan in the event of a conflict with China over disputed islands called the Senkaku in Japanese. This person commented in a Yahoo Japan news site, "Without rushing to make compromises on TPP, Japan won Obama's assurance of the Senkaku Islands. This means a lot." Another commented, "I'm surprised that the Japan-US security treaty can have this much effect as a military alliance. This makes me realize how important the US military bases in Okinawa are. We should create more jobs and more corporate facilities in Okinawa so that Okinawan people receive higher salaries." Others are less excited about Obama's word. This comment reads, "The United States policy has not changed at all. Obama is simply saying that since the Senkaku Islands are under Japan's administration, they fall within the scope of the Japan-US security treaty. Whether the United States will acknowledge these islands as Japanese territory should be another issue." For LinkAsia, I'm Toshi Maeda in Tokyo.
This weekend, Obama's in Southeast Asia, visiting Manila and Kuala Lumpur. For more analysis on the president's visit to Northeast Asia, we have Dan Sneider, Associate Director of Stanford University's Asia Pacific Research Center. Welcome back to LinkAsia, Dan.
Nice to be with you.
So, Dan, first of all, let's assess the Japan leg of the trip. Let's begin with the islands dispute.
I think the Japanese government has to be head over heels about how the president dealt with this situation. He made the first formal statement by an American president saying that the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty extends to the disputed territories. He was very tough on that question. In his press conference, he was a little more balanced in terms of warning both sides against escalating the situation, but the formal joint statement between the two countries doesn't reflect that very much. It very much is along the lines of the American security commitment to Japan, and that's what the Japanese were looking for.
Now, you've argued that the U.S. had a role in setting the foundations, if you will, of the dispute, and you think Washington should get more involved in the whole matter. How?
Well, my argument has been mainly directed at the broader issue of the World War II history issues, which continue to interfere and really cause problems in the relationship that Japan has with both South Korea and with China. And in some sense, the territorial disputes, and there are disputes in both cases, are really a function of, they come out of the settlement of the war that was shaped by the United States. I don't advocate that the United States deal with territory per se. I'd rather that the United States really try and help Japan and its neighbors come to terms with its wartime past.
The U.S. desperately wants the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal to go through. More trade is a key part of the U.S. pivot to Asia. Talks were stuck on lowering Japanese tariffs on U.S. farm products. Is there any progress there?
Well, this was the central focus of the trip, particularly for President Obama. From the first dinner he had with Abe all the way through, there were negotiations going on. The lower-level negotiators were negotiating, trying to resolve the issues of market access for American agricultural products and automobiles to Japan. The administration, as they went out the door, claimed that they had a breakthrough in these negotiations, but I don't see the evidence of that yet. The Japanese held pretty tough on not wanting to give in on fully opening up and radically reducing tariffs in these protected agricultural areas. So we'll have to see if they actually got a bargain here. And if they didn't, I think that's a bit of a failure for the president.
Okay, let's move on to South Korea. Obama is talking about North Korea with President Park, and he also wants Park to agree to join the TPP. How did he do on that front?
Well, the main focus in the trip in South Korea is on North Korea, with the North Koreans threatening to have another nuclear test, and a lot of harsh rhetoric again coming out of Pyongyang. So I think there was very much expressions of the readiness of both countries to deal with the North Koreans and the possibility of escalation of tensions. On the TPP issue, President Park was very careful. This is not a popular issue in South Korea. South Korea already has a free trade agreement with the U.S. that in many ways is comparable, if not even better in some ways than the TPP. I think the South Koreans, she indicated they're ready to think about it, mainly because if Japan joins and potentially China could join, obviously Korea doesn't want to be on the outside. The other issue, which is there lingering in the background, it came up very much in the South Korean part of the trip, are the history issues between Japan and its neighbors, particularly between Japan and Korea. President Obama really skirted these issues to a large extent. He didn't want to deal with them directly. President Park made some very pointed comments about saying that, yes, she wants to have trilateral cooperation between Japan, the United States, and South Korea. The three allied powers are not allied with each other, but allied with the U.S. But we can't do that, she said, until we resolve some of these issues, particularly the issue of the so-called comfort women and compensation for them. The president acknowledged that, but sort of urged both sides, Japan and South Korea, to move on from the past and look forward to the future. I don't think that's an answer that's going to satisfy many Koreans.
Well, all right, Dan, as always, thank you for your perspective.
You're welcome.
Dan Sneider is Associate Director of the Walter H. Shorenstein Asia Pacific Research Center at Stanford University.
Now on U.S. airwaves, a global channel of uncompromising stories. World news, documentaries, entertainment, and culture. Link TV, connecting you to the world. For more information, visit linktv.org.